Hey Hoopheads, Brad here, and today I want to talk about Norman Powell's start to the season. Now, Norm has had some bad moments and bad games so far this year. He has 3 games with 6 or fewer points. He has more turnovers than assists on the season. He has an embarrassingly low season high of just 1 assist. He has 2 games with more than 1 rebound, and in 5 of 7 games, he shot below 30% from the field, plus he just keeps making, frankly, dumb plays. But despite all these things, I still feel some sense of hope about Norm moving forward, and I think he's going to make some serious improvements. First, let's look at where things stand right now. Right now, Norm is averaging 22.7 minutes per game, down from 28.4 last year. He's averaging just 9 points compared to 16 last year. This year, he's shooting 30.5% from the field after shooting almost 50% last year. His three-point percentage is down a little bit to 36.7 from 39.9. He's averaging less than 1 assist, about half of what he got last year. Free throws are about the same, and he's shooting the ball about 3 less times per game, probably because he's playing less minutes, because he's not playing very well. Now, as somebody who attacks the rim, first of all, Norm misses Gasol's passing. Norm is a good cutter, and Gasol is the perfect guy to find him out of the post, so losing that obviously hurts. And even in terms of just creating his own shot and attacking the rim, Norm misses bigs who can space the floor and suffers when the paint is clogged. There's a big difference in the spacing on the floor when you go from 2 centers in Ibaka and Gasol, who are both quality three-point shooters, even if Gasol is a little reluctant, to 2 guys like Baines and Len, who spend a lot more time in the dunker spot, in the paint, instead of on the perimeter and the high post. There's a big adjustment period when the floor changes like that, and Norm is going to need to figure out how to get his shots efficiently again when the defense can pack the paint a little bit more, and while Nurse frankly figures out this rotation a little bit as well. And figuring out where his shots are going to come from will take some time, and it's going to take some trying and failing at different things, and that's what I think we're seeing right now. He is shooting an abysmal 24% on 2-pointers. Is that terrible? Absolutely. But for me, there's also some comfort in it because you know Norm won't stay at 24% for the whole season. Even in his worst 2-point shooting season, which was his rookie year, Norm shot 20% better than he's currently shooting at 44%. And every season since, even the inconsistent ones, he was over 50% from 2-point land. So that number, 24%, is going to go up, I guarantee it. But let's say for some reason, Norm just cannot hit 2s for the life of him, and halfway through the season, he's still at 24%, which he won't be, but let's pretend. If that's the case, he can always just change his shot profile. He can stop trying to get all the way to the rim if he keeps getting blocked or stopped like this, and he can rely more heavily on 3s with more mid-range. From 3-point land, he's been 40% over the last 2 seasons on 2.8 and then 5.3 attempts respectively. And this season, he's shooting 37% on 4.3 attempts this year so far. So down a little bit in terms of percentage, but again, small sample size, start of the season. He'll probably be right around 40% again. And I know one of the biggest frustrations with Norm is not his stats, but his bonehead plays. So I want to talk about that. We know it took Norm a pretty good while to become a sound decision maker on the court. Through his first several years with the Raptors, that was always one of the knocks on him, and he really only got to the level of being a quality decision maker last year. And every season up to that point, definitely a learning process with bumps in the road. But with the dynamics of the Raptors lineups changing around him, the geometry on the floor changing around him, less spacing, Norm is going to be going through another learning curve. Before, we saw his learning curve has been a little slow in the past, but I think it is important to recognize that he did get there eventually. And for me, that's reason to have a little hope that he'll get back there again. Not that he'll ever be like a Lowry-style, correct decision-making machine who does the right thing every time almost. But he's shown before that he can make reliably solid to good decisions with some mistakes sprinkled in there like you'd expect from the 5th best player on your team. And I expect that it may take a while, but he'll get there. And it's important to remember that's what he is. He's a 5th or 6th man, and those guys often have some flaw in their games, whether that's decision-making or limited skills or whatever. That's why they're the 5th or 6th best player on the team and not the 2nd or 3rd best player. And the other thing I want to talk about is the lineups that Norm has been playing in. The Raptors role players in particular have mostly been very bad to wildly inconsistent, and Nurse has had to try a lot of different lineups to try to find some combination of bench players that work most nights. We know who the highest quality players on the Raptors are. It's Lowry, Siakam, VanVleet, and OG Anunoby. Well, Norm has played a grand total of 160 minutes this season across 7 games, and of those 160 minutes, 102 of them have been in lineups with only 2 or sometimes even 1 of those top 4 players. That means that almost 2/3 of the time that he's on the floor, it's with some 2 or 3 man combination of guys like Aaron Baines, Terrence Davis, Yuta Watanabe, Stanley Johnson, Alex Len, Matt Thomas, Chris Boucher. And even though some of those guys have been good some games, notably Chris Boucher, for the most part, they've been a combination of terrible in certain cases and inconsistent in others. And because Norm is a scorer, he often gets asked to carry some of these more marginal lineups while 2 or 3 of the Raptors' top 4 guys are on the bench resting. And often he's on the floor with OG Anunoby, which of the top 4 guys is the least consistent scorer. And I think we need to be realistic about what we can expect from Norm in lineups where you're asking him to try to generate offense with 2 guys who just aren't being that effective on a night-to-night basis. Like lineups with both Stanley Johnson and Alex Len on the floor are probably never going to be super viable. And the numbers kind of show that out. When Norm is on the floor with 1 or 2 of the Raptors' top 4 players, the team is getting outscored by 17 points per 100 possessions. When he shares the floor with 3 or 4 of the Raptors' top players, Toronto is outscoring opponents by 21 points per 100 possessions. That's a swing of 38 points per 100 possessions. And although we're working with small sample sizes here, I think the magnitude of that number is pretty telling of how things have gone. When Norm gets to play with 3 high-quality players, he can play within himself a little more and help the team to excel. And when he's asked to take on a larger role, often with 2 borderline rotation players on the floor beside him, the team falters. So all of that is to say, I don't think the Norman Powell we've seen so far is as good as it's going to get this season. I think he's being asked to take on an outsized role at times, sharing the floor with players who are having bad seasons so far and who are making it a little more difficult for him to find his shots. I think once some of the other bench guys improve and step up and gel a little bit, there's a good chance we see Norm's effectiveness go up. And I think as he figures out where his shots are coming from more consistently, his efficiency will improve as well. Thanks for watching. If you like what I do and you want to get a little exclusive content, you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/TooMuchHoops for just a few bucks a month. And if you want to see more videos like these, like and subscribe and join the conversation in the comments.